from an undisclosed location in the Great Western Desert in the land of the free and autonomous Native American people. The 2024 presidential campaign in its time to return all US land back to their rights owners. This is the Ben Zion Podcast. Techno-communism will win.
I'm taking a little liberty there, poetic license, and calling them devils. So don't believe that there's any such thing as a devil. Only bad people. Longer lifespans. We'll shift gears a little bit. Look, this is an article from MIT Technology Review, technologyreview.com. Antonio Regalado, March 8th, 2028. That's today, by my calendar. Sam Altman invested $180 million into a company trying to delay death. So universal super longevity is a stated goal of that's often described on this show. It's a goal of anyone who would be interested in hive mind collectivism, seeing that this species becomes more powerful, more stable, more intelligent, and all of that would include being having longer lifespans. None of this should be controversial, and yet it is. So you say, oh well, Sam Altman, he's the CEO of OpenAI. He just wrote this fascinating Chat GPT manifesto. I kind of think he's got real balls. No, don't do it. Chief executive officer of any corporation is not an important person by the standards of that operation. That's an overblown, overrated role. But also, these entities should not exist. Private wealth should not be lionized in this way, and private wealth should, in fact, be abolished. Sam Altman's not such a good guy. You're doing this thing all day long, every one of you. If you're an American or a person living in the West, you're doing this thing where you say, the media is giving you two choices. Well, here's Hitler, here's Mussolini. Well, let's debate their relative value. You probably like Mussolini more, but who knows, maybe you like Hitler more. You shouldn't like any of those people. They should all be hanging upside down from a lamppost. So Sam Altman is not a good guy, and you know that these people who are interested in radical life extension are not good people, because they never lift a finger to support a public health service, even during a plague. Even at that moment when a small amount of effort on their parts, a small amount of coordination on everyone else's part, might have been enough to establish a public health service in the US. These people were fighting against it, or doing nothing. People, techno-fascists like Gennady Stolyarov and Zoltan Iswin were fighting against it. All of these other, just not CIA assets, just idiots, were just doing nothing. So Sam Altman probably, who knows, maybe a little more in the category of idiot, but also become a high-profile figure quite recently. So he's supporting efforts to delay death, but all of this is going on in for-profit sectors, which have been known to kill people. 100,000 people die every year in the United States, even before a plague, for a lack of a public health service. And that's who all of these transhumanists and techies and futurists are, is people who are pretty happy with that situation. So they're not lending anything to the fight for radical life extension, because they're not even supporting ordinary life extension. The spanning of years beyond 80 years in an ordinary world that occurs when you have a public health service. They're not supporting a public health service, and that's why life expectancy has fallen off a cliff in this fascist country. When a startup called Retro Biosciences eased out of stealth mode in mid-2022, it announced that it had secured $180 million to bankroll an audacious mission to add 10 years to the average human lifespan. The whole function of techno-futurism is a narrative, right? It's to create this bogus storyline wherein, capitalism has killed the planet, capitalism has pushed life expectancy off a cliff, but here's what they really want to be doing. If capitalism was done correctly, here's what they would be doing. They're creating a narrative on behalf of the State Department. And that's why these people are, kind of puppet masters in this, because that's who their bosses are effectively. So the idea is that be some alternative, right? Oh, it's not. We don't need to focus on revolutionary action. We don't need to focus on building a humane and sustainable economic system. We just need to focus on better capitalism. There's no better capitalism. And the techno-futurist worldview is a complete lie. And you can look at this political compass. It's on the screen a lot. That shows how these worldviews are worlds apart, and how these people are tools of the right. Retro said that it would prize speed and tighten feedback loops as part of an aggressive mission to stall aging or even reverse it, but was vague about where its money had come from. At the time, it was a mysterious startup, according to press reports, whose investors remained anonymous. Now, MIT Technology Review can reveal that the entire sum was put up by Sam Altman, the 37-year-old startup guru investor who is CEO of OpenAI. Altman spent nearly all of his time at OpenAI, an artificial intelligence company whose chatbots and electronic art programs have been convulsing the tech sphere with their human-like capabilities. So, does Sam Altman really want to change civilization as this anarcho-capitalist firebrand, writing manifestos about tech accelerationism and bankrolling life extension projects? Yeah, he probably does. But that he's not going to. Capitalists are just not capable of that. This is more narrative. This is more fascist propaganda than actually something that's going to be helping people. And you can see that. You don't really need to be looking at this through a microscope to see that life has gotten worse in the past years in the wake of a plague that could have been easily just have been a historical afterthought that we wouldn't even talk about today. Had a few things been done, but those things were in defiance of capitalism. So those things couldn't even be considered by the media or by people who are enthralled to this fascist propaganda. And so there's no escaping. There is no such thing as an anarcho-capitalist. The very theory of Sam Altman is fallacious because capitalism requires an aggressively pro-business friendly state to protect it. So there's no anarchism in any of that. There's only fascism. There's only fascism of varying shades and iterations. Altman's money is a different matter. He says he's emptied his bank account to fund two other very different but equally ambitious goals: limitless energy and extended lifespan. And all of these things are laudable developments, and some of the technology there is itself very, very worthy. But again, you should always be asking yourself, why am I only ever considering these things in these two sets of categories? The ordinary capitalist who has an aversion to advanced technology, or the capitalist who wants to, who says that they want to live in a far more advanced civilization. Why not the person who's dedicated to a far more advanced civilization, who's also dedicated to a humane and sustainable economic system? Why is that not ever one of the choices? Because this is a carefully curated, very, very elaborately micromanaged set of propaganda that you are subject to, where these are the only effective choices that you're going to see. The capitalist realist is a propaganda manufactured by propaganda, and the capitalist realist worldview has been foisted upon you in that way. I'm not going to get too much further into this article, but I do suggest that you try to read and understand more the ideas of radical life extension, but always with this caveat that radical life extension technologies, this emerging biomedicine, should be integrated into a public health service. A public health service that treats aging as a disease does not exist today. Even the finest public health services in the world. The United States has effectively no public health service, but there are ones that are better. But even those do not treat aging as a disease. So hopefully, as time wears on, these operations, which are now captured by fascists obsessed with profit, will start to become will become things more in keeping with a socialist state. I'm tripping over my words with that because we've been so forced into into this capitalist realist world that we can scarcely even conceive of this world of planned economies and better run institutions. Even though these things did quite well in the 20th century and would have done a good deal better had they not been attacked by fascists with overwhelming force. People in the Western consciousness, in the U.S. public imagination, people say, well, the planned economy itself failed. No, the planned economy did its job. Soviet life expectancy doubled in the years it existed. And everywhere else that was, to any degree, in the sphere of influence, saw similar benefits. And when that influence was removed, and when those institutions, more importantly, were removed, life expectancy fell. It's not hard to figure out what the problem is. You should not be that person who's tricked into this false choice between Mussolini, Sam Altman, and Hitler, the typical American paleoconservative or something. You should be the person who is willing to say, I see the value of emerging technology and advanced technology. I see the value of fighting for a humane and sustainable economic system. I am a techno-communist. And that's why I always wear this funny hat. It's the Ouroboros symbology, which to me represents. It has could read other subtext into it, but to me represents this world of hive mind collectivism and truly a better human race and truly a better, more sustainable and humane economic system. Talking about the problems of techno-fascism versus techno-communism in the first part of this show, talk a little bit more specifically about developments of recent years. So this is from Ars Technica, arstechnica.com. Microsoft aims to reduce tedious business tasks with new AI tools. So I have on my phone now 3 different Chat GPT style apps, including the one from Chat GPT itself. And I've given you the names of some of those and given you this URL for logging into Chat GPT on the show a few times. You know, I think the very last show I read a poem written by ChatGPT about climate change, which I thought was pretty good. I might have still read it to you even if I didn't like it as much. So you are able to use kinds of tools that people, you know, who first started working from the Rand Corporation, you know, maybe they were gaming some of this prospects out of the problem of techno revolution from their point of view, but they had no way of anticipating this kind of thing. But at the same time, you know, you can read pulp novels from the 40s, you can watch movies from the 50s that pretty well describe an artificial intelligence singularity and techno revolution. You know, nobody ever knows what the actual texture of this canvas looks like until it's written, until it's made. But people were able to predict this sort of thing. So don't believe techno-futurists when they say they have some great revelation every few minutes or something. They're just bullshit artists. There's this guy Alex Vikolov who tags me and stuff recently on Facebook, and I don't actually mind being tagged by him. I don't know that Alex Vikolov is doing anything overtly fascistic in his messaging. He seems to be advocating for something not wholly dissimilar from the hive mind collectivism that I've described, but without any real focus on revolutionary action or the consequences of a lack of focus on material conditions, not really standing in opposition to techno-fascism or the neo-reactionary institutions of technology that have been built in this ugly first decades of the 21st century here in the heart of the imperial core of the fascist USA. So a person who's not saying those things, who's only focusing on long-term effects, is effectively just engaging in right-wing thought experimentation of little consequence. But nevertheless, if somebody like this tags me in something, and maybe people in my feed who are a little more focused on the material conditions, but not too interested in the most powerful tool in that fight, emerging technology, maybe they might see that and still take something from it and become more legitimate techno-communists, in my view, as a result. So I don't mind if somebody like that tags me in something like this. But back to the article, you are able to perhaps change your life in pretty significant ways because of new AI tools. Microsoft aims to reduce tedious business tasks with new AI tools. This is specific to the workings of your office or workplace. If you work in a place like that, if you're lucky enough to be a white-collar worker in the West, more or less kind of doing make work, being a beneficiary of being of a certain privileged position within the Western capitalist class, and they are effectively doing make work. Survey after survey and study after study suggesting that not a lot necessarily being done in the office, but you're playing the game, right? You're getting a little bit of benefit from playing the game, just as Peter Thiel gets great benefit from playing the game by integrating his operation as soon as he was able into the State Department interest, the CIA interest, and that's why he's a billionaire. There's no real billionaires, right? They're just fascist assets, and there's no real corporations with real corporate culture and real important work to be done. There are just fascist assets to smaller degrees. So we're removing some of this tedious work, making you even more superfluous than you already were. But there is a very real possibility for you, as a living, breathing human being, to solidify your position, and then use that more solidified position to undertake techno-revolutionary action, including the raising of consciousness, or whatever it is. Perhaps you're not much of a talker. Maybe you're better for that. Maybe you can undertake revolutionary action in other ways. But the necessity of defeating capitalism and saving this planet has to be at the center of that. I'll show you my tie. Hey, it's the Three Stooges. I've recycled this beautiful tie, and I thought I would wear it for the show today. Maybe doing something that's a little more, hopefully a little more targeted to people who might want to take a critical view of capitalism and not know how to do it. So maybe thought, why not put on a suit? But I'm a jackass, so I had to wear a Three Stooges tie. Right. I don't know how much I need to hear from Ars Technica today. But the headline kind of pretty much speaks for itself. You are familiar with the power of digital assistance. It's able to use something that it calls a conversation booster, not dissimilar from things that we've discussed quite a lot on this program. A whole manner of things that are increasingly becoming more like working with a real person who's able to do a lot of the work that you would otherwise be doing. The course of the 21st century, we'll see this going from being something human-like to something quite further beyond, and you must be at the center of that. You must be riding the top of that wave that is superintelligence. If that's not the case, that will mean the destruction of the human species. Are you sure about that, Ben? Yeah, I'm sure about that. Because the people who've been fighting against that, as I said, for 3/4 of a century, the people who've been plotting and scheming against that are the people who are responsible for killing the planet. And they will never stop killing the planet until you make them stop. So there is no superintelligence, there is no techno-revolution or better tech-driven world without the utter annihilation of fascists and capitalist institutions throughout the West. Those are one and the same. A second ago, I ran out of space on my hard drive. I didn't even think I was close to running out of space. So then I had to stop the recording and delete some files that I was already finished with. So I'd like to talk in every program, I guess, about the problems of fascist capture of technology, and I like to talk about a little bit about AI in general in some way or other, and I like to talk about pretty specifically about getting rid of these two most damaging sectors petroleum products and animal products. So I'm always saddened when the narrative is turning away from, even a little bit in a landscape that's already very much turned away from it, is turning away from people taking the position of fighting against ecocidal factory farming and fighting against ecocidal livestock systems. You say, come on, Ben, it's just food, right? We've got to eat food. No. Just one of this is American fascism at its best. Just one of these companies, the McDonald's Corporation, is responsible for a huge amount of destruction of rainforest, and a huge amount of murder of people living in rainforests, and a huge amount of murder of the planet itself and all of its other human populations. For every and there's 20 other companies with almost equal culpability, and huge lobbies tricking you every day into not focusing on abolishing ecocidal livestock systems. And when these things start to enter the public consciousness in the form of new products like Beyond Beef, these lobbies are instrumental in seeing that you think the first thing that you think of when you think of a product that could replace the ecocidal factory farm is that it's unhealthy or unsavory or unnatural. This is the only unnatural and unsavory thing is murdering the planet in that equation. It's perfectly healthy, will lean vegan meat attract more meat eaters? Impossible launches light beef. So this is suggesting that rebranding this product with a focus on light foods, some kind of health food jargon, which is not terribly meaningful. This word light, a lot of what we think about in these contexts is not terribly meaningful. Might encourage people to embrace this less ecocidal product. I should hope so. Impossible Foods was founded in 2011 with an unwavering mission to use plants to recreate animal products, with a mission of replacing them with more sustainable, ethical, and delicious alternatives. First launched in 2016, its flagship Impossible Burger took on conventional ground beef and has since become a supermarket and restaurant menu mainstay. And the fact of this being available in every supermarket, I suppose, is a win to some degree in the fight against ecocidal factory farms. But the real win is you recognizing, you, the American people, and you, any English-speaking person in the West, presumably English speakers watching this show, I speak only English and Spanish, will, as a class, all of us need to rise up and take a stand against these two sectors that are killing the planet: petroleum products and animal products. And very few communists are vegans. Very few techno-futurists are vegans. And I've been pretty critical of both. I kind of fallen on the wrong side of a few influencers in communist circles for saying that if you are not against factory farming in this way, that you're a fascist sympathizer. But it's a fact, right? If you're not advancing the fight for against capitalism, if you're defending one particular capitalist sector because you like to eat cheeseburgers. You can eat a cheeseburger. It tastes exactly the same. It's made with products like this every day of the week if you want. 3 meals a day, 21 meals a week. You can eat them all day long and be living much more in a you can make whatever you want, right? Vegan food is just food. It tastes exactly like carnist food because all of these replacements are indistinguishable. The only thing that separates these two is ocean and wave upon wave of propaganda directed at you to trick you into supporting fascist institutions, to imagining that there's no alternative. But there is an alternative. But the alternative is that we stand up and fight against it, and that comes from awareness. That's why I keep doing the show, even though not a lot of people watch it. I'm going to keep making this program because it doesn't take that large number of people to really do this. Even in this world where the Rand Corporation and State Department assets figure out how to game all of this out and increasingly control all of media to fascist ends, that's not an insurmountable hurdle. But in smaller places outside of those spheres of influence, this has been known to happen because of a few people. I mentioned on the show a few times that the Cuban Revolution was just a couple of people getting in a boat and saying we're going to fight for this socialist state in our country, and that's what they did, and they won. And that's you could be that person. And if you're watching this program, I think you're a good deal more likely to be that person than almost anyone else. So I'm going to keep doing this show. Maybe a few dozen people watching it here or there could make a difference. Yeah, so I would encourage you to try Beyond Beef if you haven't. I would encourage you, if you don't want to try this product, to excise animal products from your diet, including, don't just become vegetarian. It's slightly better, but do become vegan, do become wholly plant-based if possible. You won't suffer for it. You really will not. Your health will be better. Your wallet will be just the same, maybe better if you're very clever about it, because what is really the added expense of removing something from your diet? That's why do people even say that? You're removing something from your diet. How is that more expensive? But I understand, of course. There's only so many hours in a day. You have to prepare food and deal with your other obligations. That's why I would encourage you to try this variety of products that are replacements for this, and show your dedication to this arguably one of the more important aspects as far as individualized action of fighting against capitalism, which is recognizing the horror that these two sectors, petroleum products and animal products, pretty widely recognize that petroleum products are problematic. Unfortunately, the revolutionary action is not there for either, but the consciousness is not even there for animal products. It's just completely ignored in ways that I've discussed at great length. Every show I tried to change gears a few times and give you some different kinds of perspectives on things to do with real revolutionary outcomes relating to the techno-communist prospect. So I thought I would read this article from PCGamer.com. Karen Wickens wrote this just within the last 48 hours. It was published. Today is March 8th. Researchers have been able to use stable diffusion models to reconstruct images from human brainwaves. Sometimes we talk about the hive mind on this program, and you say, then you should be writing science fiction, right? This sounds like science fiction, and that's a legitimate criticism. If you're communist and you don't like the techno-communists because you say this is science fiction, and I can live with that. But most of the people who say this are not communists, and that's a problem. So I tried to I talk about how new breakthroughs in computer science and brain-computer interfaces that exist today portend the prospect of the hive mind collectivism that I described at the top of the show, and the better civilization in its wake. Researchers translate brainwaves into scarily accurate images using stable diffusion AI. Imagine having the ability to recall your memories with near-perfect precision. As we move into an ever more AI-centric future, that dream looks set to come true. With researchers now having used stable diffusion to reconstruct pretty damn accurate high-resolution images by reading human brainwaves. So stable diffusion is an AI art generator that you can use anytime you want. You do not have the ability to do what these guys have done because that requires a little bit another set of technologies. Difficult to reconstruct high-resolution human brainwaves. We could one day be pulling up images from the annals of our minds without having taken a single photograph. I think that's pretty cool. And I mentioned in the course of this this set of talks that there's a potential for dehumanization. That's why I think that focusing on machine consciousness, this idea of artificial intelligence, even the word itself, is pretty messed up, because in this world where the human animal becomes a different thing, it becomes very easily to begin to think of life as being very cheap, and that's something to avoid. That's something the fascists want you to not avoid. There's all manner of trickery every day in American society that's meant to make you more toxic masculine, more violent, more inured to fascist violence, and all kinds of things that are designed to dehumanize you, because you can't have fascism without these kind of droogs. You need a certain solid number of droogs to have a fascist country. Similarly, You need a certain set of kind of technodrugs to have this Peter Thiel neo-reactionary God Emperor scenario. And but that doesn't mean that that's actually what needs to happen or what is good. The good thing is to value life more as you become as we move into a more advanced state as a species, as individuals, as a civilization. Researchers Yu Takagi and Shinji Nishimoto from the Graduate School of Frontier Biosciences at Osaka University recently wrote a paper outlining how it's possible to reconstruct high-res images using latent diffusion models by reading human brain activity gained from functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, without the need for training or fine-tuning of complex, deep generative models. Considering we don't fully understand how the underlying translation happens in the brain, the results from this research are incredible. The fact that the researchers were able to coax high-resolution images from the latent space using human brain waves is astonishing. The PC Gamer magazine is astonished and incredulous at this development, and rightly so, perhaps. All right. They say high resolution, but we're talking 512 by 512 pixels. Still, it's a darn sight better than the 256p the competition had managed, and with a much higher semantic fidelity too. So, your dreams are being translated into standard deviation images, and soon high definition images, and soon high definition video. That is pretty incredible, right? I would encourage you, round this out by calling up our political compass again and encouraging you to say that the world of the capitalist transhumanists, which is a sham ideology concocted to distract you from the prospect of this scarier thing, perhaps even objectively a little scarier thing, of hive mind collectivism. But I don't think we can be too objective, as we're looking at all of this through the lens of the fascist West. But consider the things that I've said about with the state of the technology, where that's likely to go the next few years, and what the implications of our apathy towards this are relative to joining together to common purpose, being willing to accept that this hive mind collectivism is a realistic and reasonable goal, and being willing to use this most powerful set of tools that has ever existed in the fight against the death of our planet.